come together, all of us. The Anunnaki races through Nibiru have had control over what's called Stargate 4 and Stargate 5, or part of Stargate 5, not the whole thing, since 22,500 BC. They've seeded distortions of our religions, which were originally translations of the Cloister Door Tour plates. What they did was take them and put up a false externalized creator God. That is false. The teachings of Christ were always about the inner Christ. The teachings of the Cloister Door Tour plate. Now, there was a Jesus. Actually, there were two of them right around the same time. We're not denouncing Christianity, but I was a part of those early movements in my incarnation. I remember how much they meant. And when I see what's being done with the externalized God concept and how people are being used and manipulated with that concept, it makes me angry enough to say, to tell the truth that I know. And I know the truth from the Cloister Door Tour plates and from the incarnational memory I have to back it up. It started with Atlantis. When Atlantis went down, it continued in Sumerian culture, where the god Anu was appointed as the big father patriarch guy. And there's a whole story in Sumerian culture about Enki and Enlil and their fight and their father god Anu. This was a whole Anunnaki story. It was when they began again to try to infiltrate this planet by hybridization with the human lineages, trying to literally force enough of themselves in here where they could contaminate the human gene code and mutate it out of its 12-strand capacity. They have 11-strand capacity. If you have 11-strand capacity and you're trying to control a group that you know has 12-strand capacity, you know you're in trouble if they wake up, because you're not going to control them anymore. The Anunnaki want the Templar. They always have. They want Earth's Templar and they want the interplanetary Templar. And because they didn't understand the need to have Christos consciousness, to have the commission to run that Templar, they fought for it and tried to take it instead, and they're still doing it. Right now, we have a situation of a stellar activation cycle, which is actually a wonderful joy. For 200,000 years, our race, incarnationally, has waited and waited for this point. It commenced on January 1st, 2000. They didn't know if it would, because there's a lot of physics involved with whether or not those gates will actually open. But once something called grounding the stellar bridge happens, which did happen on January 1st, 2000, you can't turn it back. That starts the frequency downloads from the higher dimensional fields. That starts the opening of the seals, the 7 seals in the planetary grids, which are frequency seals on the 7 primary vortices on the planet. It starts a whole chain reaction that brings our sleeping Templar complex and all its sacred sites and all its Stargate sites and portals to life. Now that that's happening, normally we'd have a great celebration. This is great. This is where we get our teachings back, because when there was a promise in the Emerald Covenant, the restatement 248,000 years ago, that when the stellar activation cycle next happened, the angelic legions would bring back the Cloister Door Tour plates, give the information back in pure form, and turn the keys to the Templar, Earth's Templar, over to the human lineage, to the ones who showed they cared and who showed enough spiritual maturity where they wouldn't abuse the power. It was time to activate the Emerald Covenant. January 1st brought that to us, and that is such a celebration for our race. When we can begin to understand or remember where we came from before, we all have, right in our DNA, memory of our other lifetimes. We're going to talk about those a little bit today. I'm talking about reincarnation, but not in the usual sense. We're talking time mechanics with reincarnation. But what I want to get across first is that when yesterday we talked about the fact that there has been an edict of war issued by the Anunnaki and the Draconian legions, who have just decided to combine to try to wipe out the Guardian legions. They told the Guardians to leave and let us take over, or it's war. And the Guardians said, you think we're going to leave? We're just going to leave them stranded there. I want you to understand that as we've talked about some of the nasty stuff that's going down, we've not talked about it in fear. We've talked about it with perhaps the recognition that if there's going to be a time when we reclaim our responsibility and rights as being keepers of the Templar, now's a real good time to start, because we might not have a chance to do it if we don't now. I want you to understand, we're not moving into a scary thing, but we're moving into a strategic game. It's all taken place. It was our creation contract. So the human form will always carry that feel, that driving force. If our belief systems don't block us from opening our minds to bigger belief systems. See, the paradigm we teach doesn't exclude any belief systems. It just shows where they fit in a bigger template. There's no force, there's no dogma. You don't have to do this and not have to do that. There's no excommunication, none of that kind of nonsense. Okay? People have a right to have their own relationship to Source. If we can reclaim a bit in ourselves of our angelic human heritage now, we will not only advance our own spiritual development hugely, we will be able to help what's happening on this planet. What needs to be done on the planet is simple. We have Stargates 4 and Stargates 5. Stargate 4 is the solar Stargate. It's been under Nibelungian control since 22,500 BC. They were supposed to, as per the Treaty of Altair, turn that control back over to the Azerite security teams that were commissioned by the Brennell legions, so everybody could get the Interplanetary Templar and Earth's Templar working properly. They've refused to return it. They would rather see pole shift happen and clear the real estate so they can come in and try to take it over. That's not very nice, to say the least. Stargate 5 they have partial control over because they were part of what was called the Palladian-Nibelungian Alcyon Council. They have part of the security codes on Stargate 5. Beings that decide they have been entrusted once upon a time to have a security contract on a Stargate. That's a very big commission. That means you were trusted and really, really believed in that you would serve the good of the whole and not selfish agendas. When beings like that decide, we're going to play games with this trust. You gave us this power, well, now we're going to use it against you until you give us what we want. What the Anu legions wanted was to have their Anu Melchizedek race from inner Earth to be put in charge of Earth's Templar and humans in subservience to them. That would be a breach and violation of the Emerald Covenant, the original Emerald Covenant, that said humans were commissioned to be the beings that would run the Interplanetary Templar. And that Emerald Covenant was extended to include Anunnaki. When they showed in different periods that they were willing to work with us, it became coevolution. All right, we'll both share it together, but under the direction of the Brennell. That means if there was any conflicts there, both sides had to listen to the Brennell so they didn't fight and get into all messes like this. The Anunnaki legions had agreed to those agreements, and they've broken them again. Every time it came down to, oh, a stellar activation cycle is really going to happen, that's kind of when it all exploded. That's when they decided, oh, this is our chance, because I know if we can just push it, we can get in it, we can get control of this, we really can. They still haven't learned. It's not about control. It's about cooperative sharing. And unfortunately, we're in the middle of it, our race that has no clue right now as to its origins or its history or its original commission. Everybody's just struggling to find out who's God, where's God, can I connect to this? You know, they feel a desire, some people don't care at all. They're atheists, they don't want to know about the word God. I can almost sympathize with them sometimes because they're so sick of a Father God creator figure that dominates women, that tells you you're sinful, that tells you you're pathetic, that tells you you're powerless and you have to grovel before some priest caste in order to get your entrance into heaven. I can see why people become atheists. If there's only two choices, worship Father God or pretend I don't believe in any of it, I'll just like pretend I don't believe in any of it. It's like a security mechanism. You know, it's just, you know, fine, I'll shut down as a coping skill. You know, we're presented with an opportunity to really reclaim our own godliness, our own I am presence. I am part of that whole. I am a face of that whole. An angelic human is a person who becomes aware, no matter what level of awakening or non-awakening they're in, starts to let that little spark of source consciousness that ignited their consciousness into manifestation. Everybody has it. Even Anunnaki have it, but it's a lot harder to activate in their systems. But in the human system, that spark is intact. If we can begin to bring in the frequencies of consciousness that will allow that spark to ignite into a flame, we change, we open, we expand, and we remember that we are angels down here. You don't need wings to be angels. In fact, real angels don't need wings at all because you don't need wings to ascend. Ascend isn't about flying up into the sky. Ascend is about going through stargates or ascension passages, up through the densities, progressively de-densifying your matter body and turning yourself back into pure Christos liquid light. And at that point, you have the desire and the ability to manifest in any form, in any density that you choose whenever you want. But you don't have to stay there, so you don't have to pay rent. You know, but it's really nice to be a 12-strand avatar because once you really have that, you can come into a system, say hi and do your nice thing, say bye, I'm going, and you're gone. You don't need a car, you don't need a spaceship, you know.